PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome to PLD Projects. Welcome to Holy Snokes. I am your host, PLD, but today I'm playing the part of Han Solo. That's right, because I am running this bad boy solo today. Matty Gunner, my trusty sidekick, is unable to join me today, but we could not leave you in the lurch without talking about the episode of Mandalorian that dropped. Guns for Hire. We do have a few news pieces to develop, of course. So I'm going to run this thing solo. I hope you enjoy yourself as much as usual. I have no witty repartee with my co-host here, and I only have one point of view. But hey, what can you do? That's what happens. Them's the breaks, my friends. Them's the breaks. But here we go. Let's get into everything we can get into. But if this is your first time here on this channel or listening on the audio, please hit that like, hit that subscribe. Leave comments, leave reviews. We're riding on a march on YouTube to hit 500 subscribers. It's a modest goal. We are getting there slowly but surely. We are nearing 400. We'll get to 500 after that. This is a big week for Star Wars. Big week for Star Wars. Celebration is coming up. It's days away. Matty, hopefully, you're going to make it to Celebration, and we'll get some news reports from the stage or from the forum floor, regardless. All the news is going to drop. It could be a ton of news. It could be a little bit of news. Either way, we're going to be here. I'll be going over it live as best I can. I'm going to go live several times for the weekend, even if it's just reading Twitter threads to react to them. Maybe we'll get some trailers. Maybe we'll get some trailers released to us mere mortals who are not attending the celebration. Either way, I'll be here to talk about it for sure, and we'll get some reports from Matty as well. But today's episode of Holy Snokes, we are dealing with The Mandalorian 3, Season 3, Episode 6, Guns for Hire. And my God, I could tell you right away this was going to be a very divisive episode. This is Star Wars at its wackiest, at its wildest, and sometimes at its best. I feel sometimes we as Star Wars fans can take things very seriously at times, and I feel like sometimes it's almost too serious. And I think this is the kind of episode that we need every once in a while to remind us is a silly space fantasy. Yes, there's seriousness to it. Yes, there's emotions to it. But there's also these wild and wacky kind of moments, these cartoonish moments, these moments that don't really fit the mold of serious space fantasy. But it's a part of the whole. It's a part of the whole. And God, I'm going to tell you right away, it's a spoiler for the end here. I enjoyed the hell out of myself watching this episode. I can't wait to dive into it. But first, as we do on Holy Snokes, we do have a few news bits to cover. I will foresee, because Matty's not here, I don't have that same back and forth. This will probably end up being a little bit of a shorter episode. But that's also because I will also apologize, because I am a man who is exhausted. I worked last night overnight. I got mandated to stay. I literally just got home from work about 5 minutes ago. I'm recording this all behind the scenes stuff here. I'm recording it at 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern time. I've been working since 10:45 p.m. the previous night. So I'm going to do this, get this in for you guys, and then go to sleep. And then I get to do it all over again tonight. It's even more fun, right? Anyway, let's get into these news bits today. I'm a little bit punch drunk, so forgive me if anything seems a little off. I'll do my best I can. All right, you got a couple bits of news pieces. What I want to touch base on first was the story from Donald Glover. Donald Glover was speaking to GQ, and he was talking about a couple different projects, and he mentioned Mando, which is a project we haven't heard about much since the initial announcement that it was going to happen. We kind of heard that Kathleen Kennedy said, well, we're still talking about it. It's all up to Donald. We have pieces in place, but there's not a lot of movement on it because he's a busy guy. Hadn't heard anything from Donald himself, and a lot of people had kind of assumed that it was done, that we weren't going to hear anything again. I even was kind of like, I think this one might be being put to rest. But according to Donald, it's not dead. yet. This is not like big earth shattering. We're moving forward. We're doing everything as we can. But the fact that he is talking about it is a good sign to me. It's definitely some life to it. The exact quote he said when he asked about Lando, he said that he would love to play Lando again, and playing was quite fun. However, it needs to be the right project. It just needs to be the right way to do it. Now, time is precious. I think everybody's like from the past couple of years with this pandemic shit has really had people experience time in a way where they're like, well, why am I doing this? I should be around oranges. He was doing the interview in orchards, by the way. People realize that time is valuable. You only get so much. So I'm not interested in doing anything that's just going to be a waste of time or just a paycheck. I'd much rather spend time with people that I enjoy. So it just has to be the right thing, which I think it could be. Lando is definitely somebody I'd like to hang out with. He continued it, and finally he ended up saying, we're talking about it. That's as much as I can say without Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy hunting me down. Now, throwing it out there, throwing the optimistic ball out there, as I sometimes do, speculating as much as I'm allowing myself to. This interview does take place a few days before a celebration. The fact that he said that's as much as I can say without Kathleen Kennedy hunting me down says something to me. Either it's just him poking fun at the secrecy behind the Star Wars projects, and it means nothing. Absolutely could be. On the other hand, it might be the fact that maybe there's some kind of announcement imminently happening. He can't say anything yet until it's going to happen, because the celebration's days away. You got to wait for celebration to happen, then they'll get more into it there. I don't know. I don't either way. At this point, after reading this, though, I'm not surprised if we get more about Lando in the Lucasfilm panel on Friday. Maybe not a whole lot. It doesn't seem like they're headlong into it. But I wonder if they're a little bit more further along than this implies. And he said maybe he's got the idea now. This is what we're going to do. This is maybe when we're going to do it. Maybe we've turned it into a movie. I don't know. It'd be really funny, though, if we have Solo happen. Solo being the quote-unquote first non-success, we should say, of the Star Wars saga, comparatively speaking, of course, and how that would all of a sudden lead to less movies. We haven't had a movie really since Rise of Skywalker, obviously partially blaming Solo for that, and how he got more Disney Plus series. It'd be funny if that's Lando, which is initially pitched as a Disney Plus series, moved back to a movie, right? I don't know. It's interesting to see. Again, I'm not expecting an announcement celebration for Lando. I'm not expecting much, but I am glad that we're still having the conversation, because I think Donald Glover did a hell of a job as Lando, and I'd like to see him do more. However that might be, whether it be a more fully Lando series, maybe it more of along the lines of a Solo 2 or a Solo collaboration, some kind of series about Crimson Dawn, something involving Lando that way. Either way, I'm excited. Okay, next up, this wasn't a big news drop, but it's very interesting to read. If you're a Bad Batch fan, StarWars.com had interviews with both Michelle Ang and Keisha Castle-Hughes. Michelle Ang had talked about reading the Bad Batch finale and being shocked that, spoiler alert if you haven't seen last week's episode, spoiler alert, the passing of Tech kind of took her by surprise. More interesting to me was actually Castle-Hughes, who was talking about Emery. She said specifically the part that I wanted to touch base on. The article says, as far the story of Emery and Omega goes from here, Castle-Hughes isn't saying, but she's excited about the journey and for fans to see the story play out. First and foremost, I'm a huge fan myself, and so it's a privilege to be a part of the world. I know how incredibly intelligent and switched on the Star Wars fans and people who love this universe are. It's such a huge, huge world behind the scenes, and especially in the animation. So it's exciting to bring Emery Carr to everyone and be a part of it. Now, Cassie has been around Star Wars for a while. Obviously, she played Queen Apollonia in Revenge of the Sith. And now she's got the part of Emery Carr, voicing Emery Carr, Omega's sister, as it were. But the most important part about this article is on StarWars.com, interview with StarWars.com, and it specifically says she's excited about the journey and for fans to see the story play out. Now, we haven't had an official announcement of season 3, but that's about as close as we've gotten. It seems like they're not going to put that kind of line on StarWars.com if there was doubt that there would be some kind of season 3 or some kind of continuation, whether it be a movie or something. So I'm not surprised. Everything leads towards the season 3. But I've always kind of hedged my bets until we get that official announcement. So either way, that was kind of fun to read. It's definitely good articles to read if you want to check out that on StarWars.com. They're both fun reads, especially if you were into the Bad Batch like I was. All right, one more little piece of news, and then we'll dive into the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 6 episode. This was a recent development. As of today, One Take News, who confirmed both the Daniels getting episode of Skeleton Crew, and also they confirmed a couple of getting Skeleton Crew. There's that person who got Skeleton Crew. Let me take that look real quick. I'm blanking off the top of my head. I said I'm a little punch drunk. I'm a little tired. The Daniels, and then the explosion. Oh, David Lowery. That's right. Green Knight and a Ghost Story. David Lowery also. These both were confirmed by One Take News. Well, they're back with another one. This time it's Jake Schreier. This is the man who doesn't have much of a background. He directed Paper Towns in 2015, amongst a lot of music videos. He's probably most well known in the news recently as the MCU has chosen him to direct Thunderbolts. So we're getting a big MCU movie director directing an episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I don't know much about him. I never saw Paper Town, so I don't have really an opinion on Jake. I don't know if he's a good director or not. He is obviously desired since the MCU took him. It's usually a good sign that he's in desire. More importantly, though, I'm kind of liking the idea that these Skeleton Crew is getting a different crew, no pun intended, of directors. Like Mando had their own crew. Skeleton Crew seems to have these very talented people getting their shots with episodes of Skeleton Crew. So I'm very interested to see how this goes down. I like the idea that we're getting these kind of directors on this show. This show is quickly becoming something I'm very much looking forward to. It's taken a long time because we've had very little news on it. We basically knew Jude Law, Amblin, Star Wars in space. Well, we're getting a little bit more. It's definitely piecing it with Mando. This is going to be an interesting piece of news for me. I really enjoy the idea that we're getting more. I hope we're going to get more directors, even more directors than we have now. Maybe we're going to get some more information at Celebration again, because we know that filming ended already. So we should maybe get a sizzle reel. I'm not sure if we get a trailer, because I feel like I'm asking for too much to get trailers for everything. I mean, I think we're going to get the Ahsoka trailer, almost definitively the Ahsoka trailer. I think we might get a movie idea, probably not a trailer. Maybe we'll get a Skeleton Crew trailer. The Acolyte has also been in the news. Leslie Haslam said we would get to see more soon. Maybe that meant Celebration 2, maybe a sizzle reel from the Acolyte. I'm not sure. I hope we do get some footage from Skeleton Crew. It'd be nice to kind of dip our toes into that pool. But what do you guys think? What do you think? Are you excited about Jake Schreier? Do you not care? Are you interested in his work? What's your take on the situation with the Daniels, with David Lowery, now Jake Schreier? Leave that in the comments below. Love to hear from you. Well, all right, that is the news for this week from Holy Snokes. Now let's move on to the meat and potatoes, as I said, the Guns for Hire, Chapter 22. On Holy Snokes, how we take care of business here as we go through these segments bit by bit. That's how we go through. Instead of trying to go through beat by beat and take everything into consideration, we kind of gloss over it first, and then we come back at the end and pick up anything that we might have left off on. So let's get right into it. Our first segment, as always, on Holy Snokes is Hondo Watch 2023.
Who wants to see Hondo? Talk to me!
Quite simply, is Hondo Ohnaka in this episode of The Mandalorian? Does he finally make his live-action debut on screen, not counting Disney, not counting the Disney ride? And the answers...
This effort is no longer profitable!
We are still waiting. I actually feel like Hondo would have fit very well in this episode somewhere. The tone of the episode can speak loud volumes. There's sometimes we've had episodes where I'm kind of like, Hondo probably wouldn't quite fit this episode, even though I wanted him. I want him in every episode, but he wouldn't have fit a certain tone of an episode. This episode, he would have fit very, very well in. But again, we are Hondo-less. It's bound to happen as we move forward. I've always said there's a better chance we're going to get him in Ahsoka as the sequel to Rebels with Ezra and everything else potentially than in Mando, but I still think he could fit in Mando as well. Oh well. All right, let's move on to what I call the bounty.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
And this is where I take you through a little bit of a recap of the episodes. We make sure we hit our pieces, and if I have something to expand on, I will. But mostly, it's kind of a short recap of what happened in this episode. Again, very, very colorful episode. Going to be very, very divisive. I actually felt like this episode was close to like a Doctor Who episode. That's what it kind of felt like in tone to me. Unlike a lot of Star Wars things I've ever seen before, but very colorful, very almost cartoonish in a way. Obviously, there's some cameos in here, or some not cameos, some smaller characters, supporting characters, played by some famous people, which I think is part of the reason why it touched some nerves the wrong way. Some people couldn't see past the famous person in the suit, so to speak. I happily enjoyed it though. I did have a hard time a little bit sometimes to take me out a little bit, but didn't. It took me out of the show, but didn't ruin it for me. That's the thing. It's kind of like I kind of was able to come back into it. Mainly because we were surrounded by two pieces of, it was kind of bookended by some very important stuff, and had a fun sandwich section in the middle. So I kind of feel like I said, I feel like that some Star Wars fans are taking things just a little too seriously. I'm not saying you can't have serious in Star Wars. I can't say the Mandalorian story should be serious, maybe. But I kind of like that we get the wonky. I like when we get this kind of thing. So your miles may vary. All right, well, we open up the classic Romeo and Juliet tale, Quarren and a Mon Cal. Obviously, you're flying through space. This Mon Cal captain, or rather this Quarren captain, is running through space, comes up on an Imperial cruiser who hails her. Turns out to be not an Imperial at all. It's the Mandalorians led by Axe Woves who have left Bo-Katan. It's Bo-Katan's old crew has taken over this Imperial vessel as part of their fleet, and they're tracking down a Mon Cal who was reportedly taken by the Quarren. We learned very quickly that they weren't really taken or kidnapped. It was a tale of, like I said, a Romeo and Juliet tale gone wrong. They love each other, but the Mandalorians were hired to take the Mon Cal back, so the Mon Cal is going back. We jump through. Next, we find Bo, Din, and Grogu are together going to find the Mandalorians. As we saw last episode, the armorer sent Bo on a mission to bring all of the Mandalorians into the fold so they could have a more united front and retake Mandalore. I wasn't sure at the time whether Din was going to join them or Bo was supposed to do this on her own, but right at the beginning of the episode, we have Bo, Din, Grogu, and R5 all together trying to find their old crew and see if they can get them back together. They go to a place called Plaisir 15, and they see the Mandalorian ship. They get forced to land by the security of Plaisir 15, and they are forced to meet the leaders of this community, a very pacifist community overall, very droid-based community though. And this is where the first set of small characters are going to blow you away. We open the door. It's kind of like almost like when Han Solo opens the door on Cloud Station, this big meal, and there's only Vader there. Well, this is like the real Alice in Wonderland type meal. And we find that the planet of Plaisir 15 is being led by Jack Black and Lizzo. Now, I get it. I honestly can say that I get it. If that takes you out of the episode and you checked out the rest of the way, I could understand that. I really could. I'm not saying you're wrong for doing it. I'm not saying you have to like it. But I did. I kind of got past that quickly enough. I mean, Jack Black was very Jack Black, but he looked great. He was this former Imperial who had really turned over a new leaf. And it's good to see that, too. We got to see... I will throw out there that I think in the comedy or in the cartoonishness, in that kind of like in-your-face cameos, we do get an important development in the New Republic. We got to see, obviously, we got to see Katie O'Brien and the negative side of the amnesty program. People, because she's obviously still working for the bad guys, so to speak. She's still doing bad things overall. Jack Black also was an Imperial and seems to have genuinely turned over a new leaf because of his love for the Duchess, played by Lizzo, or I'm not certain, but he really feels like he is trying to make things right. We see a great dinner piece there. Now, Jack Black and Lizzo tell the Mandalorians that they're allowed to keep their weapons because it's an intrinsic part of their culture. That's why they step aside that whole pacifistic angle thing. And they say they'll be happy to bring them to the Mandalorians who they've hired as security. But first, they have to do them a solid, and that's help fix this quote-unquote droid problem they've had. And this is the great part. This really is almost like a Clone Wars episode come to life. It really feels like an episode of the animated series turned into a live-action piece on many different angles. Importantly, though, this is where we get to see battle droids of all types, the super battle droids, the regular battle droids. I guess they are now servants. They do menial labor on Player 15. They used to be weaponized. Jack Black character continuously says he's reprogrammed them, but some of them are starting to give them trouble. So it's up to Bo and Din to kind of seek things out as like either the Doctor and his companion, or maybe even like I saw some people call it like Mulder and Scully. I get that too. So we go to see the next other smaller part, a small supporting role played by somebody famous, Christopher Lloyd, who plays Commissioner Hellgate, who's kind of in charge of the droids and tries to help Bo and Din see what they need to see and see if they get what they need to get. They have a nice conversation there. From there, we go on to their shoved towards the Ugnaughts. You might have more of an idea of where exactly these droids are. It's great to see Queel again. I mean, it wasn't Queel, but it was great to see Din invoke Queel's name as a way to breach the gap between the Ugnaughts, who are pretty silent, giving Bo-Katan the cold shoulder. Didn't know how to speak to Ugnaughts because he's had that time with Queel before. They get a list of droids. So they go see these droids out, and Bo and Din have this, again, investigation going, and Din is not very patient. Din hates droids. I love the fact that he hates droids. They don't overdo the fact, but they let you know it continuously. He starts kicking at droids until one of them kicks back. So he finds the one that's going to be the problem, and they have this big action sequence where they chase down the droid. It's a really fun Star Wars action moment. When they're chasing each other down, it just feels like, yeah, this is Star Wars right here. This is Star Wars. They find another clue on this droid, leads them to this droid bar, this droid foundry bar, which again, if you search beneath the surface level, you find some great social commentary. It could almost be a race relations kind of thing. The droids are in their own place, and they don't serve the humankind there. They're wary of humankind, but they want to help humankind. They actually want to do their jobs. They're worried that the droids that have malfunction are going to cause Plaisir to get rid of the droids entirely. And these are droids that, especially most of them, were battle droids that have no battle to fight anymore. So they're still trying to find a way to live on, to make it through. So we get to learn from the droid bartender that all the droids ingest this nepethrin, which is some kind of droid lubricant type thing. And we discover that in the nepethrin is some kind of sub-protocol which might be throwing things out of whack. Bo and Din take this to a technician who discovers that the droids have arrived in a illegal fashion. They were requested by security. So it turns out that Christopher Lloyd's character is the culprit behind this droid revolution of sorts. Bo and Din go back to confront Hellgate, and they have a great conversation. Some great Star Wars lore being dropped. Christopher Lloyd's character at Hellgate, he puts forth this idea that he's for democracy. He's not for the Republic. He hates the Republic. He doesn't like the Empire. He doesn't like anybody, pretty much. He likes democracy. He actually holds true to the ideals that Count Dooku put forth when he first became a separatist. And Bo even calls him, "You're a separatist." And he's like, "No, separatist is a pejorative word." He's like, I believe in democracy, just like the separatists did back in the day. It's great to see Count Dooku's name invoked in this era. And they almost invoked the name of Anakin Skywalker because Hellgate says that Count Dooku was cut down in his prime by Jedi Enforcer, and it stops when we move on. They do capture Christopher Lloyd. They bring him up to meet up with Jack Black and Lizzo. They find Grogu there. They collect Grogu, who becomes a knight now. He's all of a sudden he's like partially Jedi Knight, partially a foundling, partially a Mandalorian, and now partially a knight. I forget exactly what they call him, but he's knighted by Lizzo. And they have earned the thanks and the love of Jack Black and Lizzo, and they send Bo and Din and Grogu on their way to see the Mandalorians. Now, Bo is understandably nervous the whole time. She's been nervous the whole time. She's facing this crew that really no longer supports her. We're not exactly sure how it all went down. We kind of have her her vision of how things went down, or what she's telling people how things went down. Idea being that she gave up on Mandalore and wasn't going to fight to get Mandalore. So we find her marching into this like field of Mandalorians who have a fleet, but they're kind of moved on from her. And of course, what's she gonna do? What's the only thing she's gonna do? Din asked her, and she's like, "Oh, I'll figure it out when I get there." What can she do? But she can challenge Axe Wolves, the new leader of the group, to combat, because that's the Mandalorian way. That is the way. If she can defeat him in combat, she can retake the lead just like that for the most part. It doesn't always completely work that way. See Darth Maul and Pre Vizsla, and Bo-Katan left after Darth Maul beat Pre Vizsla. But a lot of these crew are very loyal to that fact. So there's a great fight between Bo-Katan and Axe that goes on for a couple of minutes before Bo finally does subjugate Axe and is pretty much she's put in charge. There's a question about whether she can lead the Mandalorians, and Axe obviously brings up the Darksaber. You need to have the Darksaber. That's where Din comes in. Now, Din tries to give it to her again, and she's like, I can't take it like that. But he reminds her in this great moment. Some people didn't like it. I thought it was great. They basically turned the Darksaber into the Elder Wand from Harry Potter. She says, well, this cyborg defeated me in this castle and cavern. Bo-Katan saved me and killed this cyborg. So Bo-Katan killed the cyborg who bested me. So isn't Bo-Katan technically the true holder of the Darksaber? Axe takes a moment and agrees with them. So it becomes quite crystal clear that Bo-Katan will be the new leader. She takes the Darksaber, she accepts it, she ignites it, and there's great music swell. And we know that Bo has found her place. She's reuniting the Mandalorians one by one sect by one sect. And we got 2 episodes left in this season to see where that's going to go. So that's where the whole thing ended. And that's the episode there. Let's move on to the rest of the segments now. The next segment we have is Mando of the Hour.
Let's just say they might recognize my face.
And this is where we decide who is my favorite character of the week, who is the best character that they have in store. In this case, it's easy for me, honestly. It's Bo-Katan. As much as I love the cartoonist side of things, I love Jack Black's character. I love Lizzo. I love Christopher Lloyd's character. It was between Din and Bo-Katan, because Bo-Katan and Din really had the moment. But the ending of the episode where she takes the Darksaber and kind of, takes her destiny in her hand, and finally she was reluctant for all these years to try to go back to that place. She's taken that step forward. A real theme and message of the episode was, to me, is that we work better together. We have to redeem ourselves from our past. Some people can do it, some people can't. Hellgate can't redeem himself from his past. He remains that separatist who wants things the way he thinks they should be. Jack Black's character can redeem himself, an Imperial who has turned over a new leaf and started a very peaceful community, loving community, fun community. You have Bo-Katan, who says, what can I do? Am I ready? Can I do this? I don't know. I know what I'm supposed to do, but she's hesitant about it. She has her battle. She takes over. She gets the Darksaber back and she ignites it, which indicates, yes, I'm ready to claim my destiny, my mantle as the head of the Mandalorians. It's a great moment. I think that's why Bo-Katan deserves my Mando of the week. Okay. Next up, we have a category I call I Have Spoken.
I have spoken.
Well, this is very fitting this week, considering the Ugnaughts. We get to see the Ugnaughts, and there actually is a bunch of I have spokens, and and that's the way they spoke. Basically, every time they say anything, I have spoken, no matter what you want to hear or not. But the line that got me this week was a definitely humorous line to me. Bo-Katan asks what's going on, like whether Din's all in, whether they can handle this. He just turns to them, and he turns to her and says, "You have me at battle droids." Excited to kill some clankers, as if it was back in the Clone Wars. I saw some people thought that was too much, too cheesy. Maybe I'm a cheesy guy. I laughed, I chuckled at it. I love Din's ongoing hatred, might be a strong word, but definitely a loathing of any droids. He doesn't care for droids, generally speaking. He handles R5, he deals with R5, just like he dealt with IG, but for the most part, especially battle droids, he's kind of like a clone in his own fashion. He wants to take out some clankers. And so you having Battle Droids made me chuckle is my favorite line of the week. So next up, we got a category I call Put That in Your Holocron and Snoke It.
Do you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
This is where I take a look at something that happened in the episode and I go, I want to see more of it. It could be something very deep lore. It could be a simple thing. It could be a game. It could be a creature. It could be an organization that was mentioned. I want to get a little deeper dive on, see what's going on there. For me, it was like this, whatever, I can't remember the name of it now, but the croquet games, the one that Grogu helps the Duchess out at the end. The Duchess is throwing this ball type thing and is trying to go through these croquet bars, these holes. And you can see that she's doing very good, but nobody really notices that it's Grogu kind of like waving the ball through at that point. But I want to see more about this game. Let's see, like, is there a league? Is there professional? Just like darts? I don't know what's going on, but it seems like a fun game. And like if Harry Potter can have Quidditch, then we can have whatever this is, Star Wars. So that's what I like there. All right, next up we have the segment of...
Hear a lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
Seen a lot of action. What's my favorite action beats of the week? This one was pretty simple overall. I did like the chase. I did like the chase through the planet, city rather, when they're chasing down the battle droid. But at the end of the day, it's got to be Bo versus Axe, because it had emotional stakes. It had powerful stakes. It had two Mandalorians flying at each other, firing everything they had at one another, looking to see who's going to be the overall leader. And Bo just subjugates him, puts him down on the ground, and climbs on top. He's like, yield. And she ends up getting that dark saber. But it's a great battle sequence. You get to see them being surrounded by Mandalorians, surrounded by Din and Grogu, who are very supportive. And it's a lot of fun. It's a fun fight sequence. So that's what I go there. All right, next up we have...
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
Laugh it up, fuzzball. This is our favorite comic moments of the week, and there were plenty of them. Mine, though, was a very subtle one. I could say that you had me at Battle Droids. There's a lot about the Jack Black Lizzo stuff I could say. I love the idea of how I love their little back and forth where Jack Black was saying, I programmed the droids. Well, obviously didn't get programmed well enough, but I promise you I programmed the droids. And it was batted off for a couple of minutes there. It was pretty funny. I also love the time when Bo and Din walk into the droid bar and everything stops and all the droids kind of turn and look at them. But the funniest part to me, the one I laughed at the most, was towards the beginning when Bo and Din first walk into the Duchess and the captain's feast, and they sit down. And Duchess asks if she can hold the baby, and Din says something to the effect of, "Well, he doesn't take kindly to strangers." And she just kind of goes, and he flips over. Grogu flips out of his chair over right into the Duchess's arms, and to the Duchess's great delight. But then turns back to Din, who's obviously, lying about taking to strangers. He looks at him and just, he's beaten. I've been there. I've had that sigh as a parent. If you've been a parent, you've had that sigh where your kid does something totally against what you just said. But it made me laugh. It did make me laugh. All right, let's move up to the next episode, or the next category. Rather, this is parsecs.
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
The ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. This is where we rate the episode. 1 out of 11. Between 1 and 11, I should say. Between 1 and 11, because we always turn up to 11 on PLD projects. I'm going to give this episode a solid 8. I do love it. If I go back and watch the series again, I'm not going to skip it. It might not be an episode I seek out to watch individually at times. I mean, I understand some of the frustrations that people have about, like, here we are, 3 episodes left, now 2 after this is over, and we spend a great chunk of time in this like middle section, this enhancing section, whereas the ending is the real thing that really moves the overall plot forward. But at the same time, I feel like Mandalorian is kind of here to stay. We're allowed to explore the things in this way. We're allowed to have fun in this way. We still get to move the needle a little bit. We're still getting the Mandalorians together. We're still getting that. We're still learning about Din and Bo and everything else and getting their relationship together more. We get to see some crazy antics. Battle droids from the Clone Wars, which we haven't seen in live action since Revenge of the Sith. I think I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure since Revenge of the Sith in live action though, and it's fun. Sometimes it's just good to have fun. It's good to have fun. But, all right, the final bit of the day we have. It is called Force Vision.
Premonitions.
Okay. This is where I take something from the episode and I, extrapolate it forward. And it could be something like 5 seasons from now. It could be a totally different show. It could be somewhere else in the Star Wars universe. It's going to come down to it. It could be next episode. And I think this time I'm going to pull a next episode. We only have 2 left. This weekend is Celebration. I think they plan things out pretty well. They tend to do that. I have the feeling next episode we're getting Sabine. I think Sabine's going to be announced at Celebration as part of Ahsoka. We'll get her in the trailer. And now that you kind of get the introduction in Celebration in the trailer, Bo-Katan's going to unite the clans. At the very end, Sabine's going to come to find Bo-Katan and try to get her to help her and maybe Ahsoka out with regards to Thrawn. Now, I know Moff Gideon's in there somewhere. I think we're going to find out. I'm more and more convinced that Gideon is working under Thrawn, because I think we would have had a much bigger battle here by itself if he wasn't. But either way, that's my big thing. I think we're going to get Sabine at the end of next episode. We already got Zeb. Now we're going to get Sabine. And that was the episode today. I mean, some great themes, some great moments. I said a lot about redemption, a lot about the families, a lot about the people you choose to live with, people you choose not to live with. And we take some great steps forward with Bo. I mean, some people have said that this is the book of Bo-Katan, and some people have said that like in a negative fashion. Some people say it in a positive fashion. I don't deny that Bo is probably one of the biggest focal points of the season. I don't mind. I love getting Bo-Katan more stories. I love getting more into that depth of character. And Din has always been a man with like a man without a name kind of. He's a prototype. He's a template. So he doesn't get as many of the more emotional experiences. So it's kind of good to give these to Bo-Katan, who can have these experiences. It's really a fun episode, though. Again, and it does swing for the fences. Again, I think the more wackier you get in Star Wars, the better at times it lets you kind of take that pause, take that breath, and go, "Yeah, this is a space fantasy I'm watching. This isn't Shakespeare." It's partially Shakespeare in some ways. I'm not saying excusing and saying it can't be good, but we need to have that kind of fun, wonky, wild Star Wars out there, because that's part of Star Wars. Whether it's the Jackson the Green Rabbit back in the Star Wars comics, whether it's some of the pod racers in episode 1, this is all part and parcel of Star Wars community, of Star Wars we've grown and known to grow in love with. So take a chill, sit back, and try to enjoy what they're giving you, because you're not going to get this again at some point. So I don't know. I think that's it for me, folks. I appreciate you checking us out, and hopefully I didn't ramble on too much without Matty to keep me in check. Wish Matty well, of course, and he'll definitely be back next week, and he'll definitely be back during Celebration, helping us celebrate, as it were. But if, again, like I said before, if this is your first time here, click that like, click that subscribe. Let us know how you feel. And if you want to support the channel even more, patreon.com/PLD projects. You join such a noble crew, noble Jedis like Austin Goodell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, John Lestrina, and more. I could not do this without you guys. We revamped the Patreon. We're going to do more that way. We got more coming on. Pretty much every show we got review, 2 meter weights on film, class action. It's all a great time. So please check us out. Check us out. But that's it for this week, folks. Again, I appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We'll be back actually with special Holy Snokes throughout the weekend. I'm not going to schedule anything specifically. So click that like, click that subscribe, because I'm probably going to go live and either talk to Matty, talk to people Matty is with. Maybe he'll get a chance to hang out with Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw from Force Center. I know he's going to be hanging out with Alex Damon and Molly Damon and try to get some maybe interviews there, and I'll get some on the scenes, news announcements, things of that nature. And if we don't got anything, I'm sure there's going to be Twitter feeds about it. I'll talk about it. We'll look at it together, and we can do some trailer reactions together. That's going to be throughout the time. I'm going to try to go with early, because they are early in the morning, being that they're over in London and we are over here. behind the times, as it were. But yeah, so it will be on there. And of course, next week, Matty and I will be back for the next episode of Mandalorian, the penultimate episode of Mandalorian. And we have to figure out what we're going to do after the Mandalorian is done, because we've done so many of our shows based around review, news and review. Might do some older reviews, might do some video essays. I'm not sure yet. We're going to have to find out. But hopefully you'll stick with us. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. I really appreciate the support, like I said before. Until next time, my friends, we'll see you soon. May the Force be with you, always.